Hey everybody, welcome to the metagame report for February 2026. Lorwyn Eclipsed has been released and those cards are filtering into decks in Standard right now, and we're going to take a look at how this has shifted the metagame. Looking at the ladder, this is specifically Platinum through Mythic. These are the decks that you'll face at the higher end of the ladder. We start with where we left off last month, and that is mono white aggro dominating the top of the ladder. And when we look at it right now, 59,000 matches in there, clearly much more than any of the other top decks here. 56% win rate, that is a little bit lower than we had last time, but mono white still very dominant. Now, why am I talking about it being so dominant if it's not the top deck? When we look at the top deck that has Orzhov Skeleton as its label, when we go ahead and look at this deck, we realize that this is a mono white aggro deck splashing black, right? And so it's more than just a splash. It's more than splashing for one or two cards, but the same core of this deck is in the mono white aggro deck. That was small creatures using enchantments to buff your attackers and being able to get in there. Here we have Optimistic Scavenger starting it out. We have your Seam Rips for removal. We have a Most Helpful Weaver to put a extra creature onto the battlefield by still being a enchantment. Now we take this card and we just go even further with it, and we go ahead and start running Case of the Stashed Skeleton. 2 mana for an enchantment, and when the enchantment comes in, you make a 2/1 skeleton. So it's basically the same card with the spider, but you make a skeleton. If you control, if you control no suspected skeletons, you can pay 1 and a black and sacrifice this to search your library for any card and put it into your hand. So you could go ahead and get exactly what you need: another creature, the big removal spell, which we'll talk about, Sheltered by Ghost. You could go ahead and get anything you need if you don't have a suspected skeleton at the end step, right? So Case of the Skeleton just slots on in there as the Most Helpful Weaver 5 through 8. Then we also get Corpses of the Lost. This is a 3 mana enchantment, and when it enters, skeletons you control get +1/+0 and have haste, and you make a 2/2 skeleton, right, which attacks as a 3/2 with haste. Okay? At the beginning of your end step, if you descended this turn, you may pay a life. If you do, return this to your hand so you can play it again and make more skeletons. Now, what else do you get for playing the black here? You get to run removal like Nowhere to Run. 1 and a black for a flash enchantment. When it comes in, it gives another creature your opponent controls -3/-3. And then it gets rid of the ward and everything like that, but it's an enchantment that deals that gets rid of your opponent's creatures, and Optimistic Scavenger triggers for the +1/+1 counters. We also are playing Forsaken Miner. This is a 1 mana 2/2 that can't block, and whenever you commit a crime, you can play black, and if you do, return this from your graveyard to the battlefield. Now there's one piece missing, which is one big card that has been here in Standard for quite a while in a new application here, and that is United Battlefront. 4 mana to look at the top 7 cards of your library. Put 2 non-creature, non-land permanents into with mana value 3 or less onto the battlefield. And so you could get 2 Corpses of the Lost, you can get a Case of the Skeleton and a Weaver and make 2 creatures. All the time also getting 2 triggers for Optimistic Scavenger on your enchantments entering. So a very similar style of deck to mono white, even though it's no longer mono white, but small creatures, tokens made by enchantments, pump up as much as you can, and then having one of the best removal spells, Sheltered by Ghost. This will exile a non-land permanent from your opponent's board. It will give your creature +1/+0, give it lifelink, and then also ward 2. So most decks have to remove just this and not the creature, so it's very hard to get a 2-for-1 with Shelter by Ghost, a premium removal spell that has been in the format this whole entire time. So mono white just dominating the top spots for this month. If we take a look at 4-color allies, another really awesome explosive deck. This one does have a lot more rare cards here, so much less budget friendly than the mono white deck, but it all revolves around Great Divide Guide. This is 1 and a green for a 2/3, and each land and ally taps for mana. So you could go ahead and use this to just spit out all the allies that you have early on. By turn 3, you'll have all the guys out on the battlefield and be ready to attack with the whole entire team. You do have some indestructible with Earth Kingdom Protectors to make sure that certain cards don't go away, whether it's by sweepers or spot removal. This will help protect some of the more important cards. And you do have a combo finish with Appa that can go ahead and just make everything run that much smoother. So 4-color allies deserves to be at the top of the list, and it is their 56% win rate. Similar win rate to Temur Omniscience, and this does get a upgrade with Formidable Speaker, 3 mana for a 2/4. When it enters, you can discard a card. If you do, search your library for a creature card. Obviously, in this deck, you are going to get Kona, Rescue Beastie, and this can come out and be tapped right away with the station lands. And then it's survival. When it gets the second main, you go ahead and put anything onto the battlefield from your hand, and the key is to put out Omniscience, and then all your spells are free. Then you card draw, and then you can win the game from there. Once you get that rolling, it's not hard to win the game. Jeskai Artifacts, a little bit of a tricky position here. It is still doing well right now. I'm not sure if it's in the greatest position long term. It doesn't have a great win rate against the Reanimator decks, and it doesn't have a great win rate against Control. So right now this is cleaning up on the mono white strategies, and also some of the green creature based strategies that are out there, the Badger Mole Cub decks. Now that's a large percentage of the metagame, and so I totally respect this deck for where its placement is right now. If I was making this list, I think I would put this closer to a B tier rather than an A tier, but I do know that it's doing well right now. My suspicion is by the time we get towards the end of February, I think this deck will take a slight step back as the control decks kind of figure out the format and start having better answers. I think you will see this artifact deck kind of slide back a little bit. The one piece that can kind of keep these up there is if Cavern of Souls really does a number on the control decks and really makes it hard to get one control deck to put its foot forward. My money would be on like the Jeskai control deck, but if there's not a clear winner in the control decks, this may be the control deck by default. And so this would still rank up high on the list. I think it's great in the B tier and totally respectful for the deck, but I do think that it's kind of taking a little bit of a slide back over the next couple of weeks. And which decks are going to jump up into its place? I think they're right here. I think the Reanimator decks, I think they are really in a poised position to do well. A Formidable Speaker, again, is amazing in this deck. You are ditching a card, and it's a card that was probably unplayable in your hand to go ahead and get any card you want, and you are getting this Cavero or Spectacular Spider-Man if you're playing in paper. And now you can play that on turn 4 and become a copy of the card that you just ditched. So if you get these bears stuck in your hand, bringers stuck in your hand, it's very hard to get them out. You're not going to play them. While Formidable Speaker then takes care of both sides, putting this into the graveyard and giving you a way to kind of reanimated. Obviously not exactly technically reanimated, but you know what we're talking about here. A great deck. I think one of these versions of this deck are going to go ahead and be A tier by the time we get to the end of February. It may be the Elementals version that are using Deceit and some of the other Elementals to be able to evoke, get those cards into the graveyard, use Spectacular Spider-Man to kind of make a second copy of them. Using Caverno or Spectacular Spider-Man, if you go ahead and tap your mana correctly and tap blue, blue, black, black, when Deceit comes back, then you get both triggers for Deceit. You get the blue trigger and the black trigger. So it works really well, and I think that this is headed for the A tier. Time will tell and see which one actually kind of takes over, but I would be really shocked if we don't see a Reanimator deck at the top of the list. Cavern of Souls does a lot for this deck. It just needs to hit that really important spell on turn 4. Cavern can make any color and also make it uncounterable, and the any color really helps the elemental part of the deck. So really good deck there. I think that there's an uptick here. I think Artifacts probably sliding back a little bit, and Reanimator taking a step up. Really good showing for some monocolor decks. This is Mono White Angels, which is all about using some flying cards to put yourself in the best position and get them out quickly. Momo Friendly Flyer makes the first non-lemur card, which is all your other creature cards with flying cost 1 less. And when you do, this gets +1/+1 till end of turn. So this is chipping in damage. It's getting your angels out just a little bit earlier, and you don't have to be out that much earlier to have like a 2 mana, 2/1 flying that when it enters, you gain 1 life and you draw a card. Again, life good against aggro, although obviously 1 life not as important at the time, but drawing another card, replacing yourself, and drawing more flyers that you can kind of get out cheaper with Momo. Just an amazing card there. Monogreen Landfall just continues to do really well. 55% over the entire archetype, although we do have decks as high as 57.5%. This is your Llanowar Elf, Zaz Chocobo, Badger Mole Cub deck. These older versions use Bristly Bill and Tifa Lockhart. Some of the new versions have red in it for like the breakout versions of the deck. Simic also has a version of the deck that uses more mana generation and then goes all the way up to Craterhoof Behemoth. But overall, this archetype still around, still pretty popular, although you've definitely seen the landfall wane in popularity over the course of the months. This is no longer where the deck was in like November. It's not as popular as we find other decks for Badger Mole Cub to go in. One of those decks that is up next is the Bant Badger Mole, and this is using all the best cards that you see: Gene Pollinator, Mockingbird, Llanowar Elf, Badger Mole Cub, to just make as much mana as possible and finish the game any way that you choose. For this one, it's Nature's Rhythm, going to go find a Craterhoof Behemoth, and once Behemoth is out, the game ends really quickly. This is the banned version, so it uses Aang's Swift Savior in order to lock down anything that your opponent is trying to do, just for enough turns to be able to go ahead and get the Craterhoof and get in there. Quantum Riddler is here in order to have a little bit more card draw, especially because you're making so much mana. Although this deck does sometimes get choked on blue mana. If you're playing this deck, please be careful with the mana base. Make sure you have enough blue when you need it. That is where I've always found this deck kind of takes a little bit of a step back. Taking a look at some other decks, here's the normal Simic or Ouroboros deck. I hate saying that card. I usually just call it the 1/3. Here is the version that plays 1 Craterhoof Behemoth instead of the other that is making it a larger point of the deck. This one usually finds them with Nature's Rhythm, and they're going up in mana using Sentinel of the Lost Lore, having a Reclamation Stage, all having a little bit of a tutoring package with Nature's Rhythm kind of being set up to counter attack whatever your opponent's deck is doing. Obviously best of one, so no sideboards, but kind of being like pre-sideboarded against certain matchups. Another interesting version of that same deck is this Temur Siege deck. So this is very similar to all of the creatures that you play, going all the way up to the one copy of Craterhoof, Nature's Rhythm to go ahead and find it. But what it is playing that a lot of the other decks are not playing is Frostcliff Siege. So this is 3 mana, 1 blue, red in the mostly green deck here. As this enchantment enters, you choose Jeskai or Temur. And Jeskai says whenever one or more creatures you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. But what you're really using this for is Temur, giving all your creatures +1/+0 and trample and haste. So this is mini Craterhoof. You can use it if you need to draw cards, but to be honest, if you are attacking and getting in there, you are already winning the game. No, it doesn't necessarily need those extra cards, but being able to have trample and just make all their blockers worse, being able to have haste and have new cards come in, this is what you're looking for, and this is kind of like a mini version of the Craterhoof combo finish. Taking another look, we have mono green Stompy, we have a couple of Gruul decks, the Breakout, and then just a regular World Souls Rage deck without Breakout. Couple of similar decks. These are all about 54% win rate, so certainly doing really well. I want to talk about Azorius Tempo. This is just a fast-paced flyer dominated deck, playing Aven Interrupter, the Glenalendra Guardian, Tashana's Tidebinder, and Ang to really just keep your opponent off of what they're trying to do, while you're putting a couple of creatures on the battlefield, mostly flyers, then end up playing Enduring Curiosity and going to town, drawing cards on your turn when you attack, and then following up with some removal, some counter spells, and having some things like Authority of the Councils and High Noon already packed up here, kind of pre-sideboarding in this best of one format. High Noon is really important. Each player can't cast more than one spell each turn, which means if your opponent can't play at instant speed, then they are stuck playing one spell while you are playing 2 spells, because you're playing on your turn, and then with your flash creatures, you're going ahead and playing on your opponent's turn also. Ouroborid with Golgari instead of Simic. I have not personally played this deck. I think the Simic version looks a little bit better to the eye, but Deep Cavern Bat to be able to go into your opponent's hand and see what they have and see what they have kind of coming, so you can go ahead and make your choices there. Luis Pompous Pillager. This is a 2/1 with lifelink, and it gets X +1/+1 counters, where X is the mana cost of value of X. And when it enters, it deals X damage to target opponent. Of course, you are also gaining that much life because this creature does have lifelink. You can go ahead and see the removal suite is different. Obviously, in Golgari, you have Stab, you have Bitter Triumph, and you have Shoot the Sheriff as a little bit more normal kind of removal suite rather than having to deal with the Simic colors. Dimir Mill is a control deck wrapped up looking like a mill deck, and this is just kind of controlling the entire board and then milling them out when you get a chance with either River Churn Monument or early on Singularity Rupture. If you can get this out, it does mill half of an opponent's library, so the faster you could get this out before your other milling, the more cards you can get out with this. But of course it does cost 6 mana, but a good sweeper nonetheless. Interesting to round out the B tier, Sultai Control clocks in. This is Duress, a shared roots deck. Stock up Maelstrom Pulse, which is really great right now. Deadly Cover Up, 5 mana sweeper, and sweepers are a big thing right now. But you also have that ability to just take threats out of their library so they can't draw anything, and then a Rupture to kind of put in that mill finish. Using the Sultai specifically for roots, it's just another version of the same kind of control deck. Looking at decks that are a little bit lower than that, you see the mono white life gain deck show up here. I think a few months ago we kind of had that question of, if you were building mono white, would you build mono white life gain or mono white aggro? I think that question has been answered. The aggro version is performing better over a long enough time to say, yes, that's the best deck to build in mono white. But a lot of players, especially new players, love to play life gain. It does have a 52.5% win rate, so it is still a very good deck and recommended for newer players. There is no changes with Lorwyn Eclipse so far, but that may change over time. Mono red clocks in here at the top of tier C. The regular version that has Razorkin Needlehead. There was some thought that this was not going to be a card that stayed around quite as much if your opponents were not drawing as many cards, but just being able to ping for a few points of damage over the course of the game will get there, especially if you're finishing them off with Burst Lightnings, Shocks, Lightning Strikes, and Witchstalker Frenzy is obviously only attacking creatures, but you have big time combo potential with Slickshot Show Off, which is a flying and haste for 2 mana, a 1/2, and whenever you play a non-creature spell, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn. This gets really big really quickly. And Bolt Wave, I know I've called it Bolt Weave in other videos, and the comments definitely made sure that I was aware of that. This is Bolt Wave, 3 damage to your opponent's face. No options to hit the creatures as we go. This is the actual Skeletons deck, and the original version of the Skeletons, where Orzhov is more of the mono white aggro version. I think that's probably where you'd rather be right now. Mono black demons just hanging around, never performs terribly, never is at the top of the list. This is a deck that kind of underperforms for me personally. I do try and play this deck quite a bit, but I've never had a perfect list to really make this happen. I tend to play less demons than you really need to. I don't like playing a demonic wall, but you end up not having as many demons as you need, and so the win rate does suffer. Mardu Demonic Pact is an amazing deck. I haven't had a chance to play it yet personally myself, but being able to go ahead and make your opponent make bad choices to eventually lose the game when you give them a Demonic Pact that has already had the other 3 choices done, and then they have to choose the 4th choice. So this is 2 black. At the beginning of your upkeep, choose one that hasn't been chosen already. So this enchantment deals 4 damage to target, and you gain 4 life. Your target opponent discards 2 cards, or you draw 2 cards, or you lose the game. So you play it, you get the value, you hand it over to your opponent. Your opponent is forced to make the choice, and unfortunately they have to make the choice to lose the game. Fun deck. I haven't gotten a chance to play it personally, but I definitely like it there. Last but not least, rounding out the C tier is Izzet Prowess. This is your Izzet Lessons deck. By the time this video comes out, I will have a video out on an upgrade path, starting with a 0 rare build of this deck, building all the way to competitive without using too many wildcards. So if anybody is interested in this deck and wants to start playing it, but doesn't want to have the commitment of just dropping 30 wildcards, including the mana base, definitely go ahead and check that out. This is still another really good budget option. The win rate itself is 52.5% for the archetype, but I will tell you in my personal experience, I am definitely winning much closer to 56 or 57% than 52. Really good deck, solid choice, and just kind of teaches you the fundamentals of playing this kind of tempo-oriented game where you're playing a Grand, and then you're playing all these removal spells to make sure that Grand can attack every single turn, so that you're drawing and discarding, and then eventually all your discards become value plays for you. So I think this is probably a little undervalued at the end of the C tier. I probably would put this closer to the top of the C tier. It's not the top tier right now in the format, but it's something you can definitely look to play. Couple of decks that round out the D tier. These are things that need to be worked on before they could be recommended. Certainly want to see mono blue tempo become a thing. We have mono colored decks in all the other colors. Want to make this thing a thing. People have been working on it for a while, just not quite there right now. Same thing with Sacrifice. I would play this deck as a Raise the Past version, but of course that would be Orzhov, and you need the lands. So if you're on a budget, maybe not something you're looking to do. But I think the Orzhov just makes this deck so much more consistent and so much better. We see a couple of Kato decks down here with Dimir Kato and Dimir Fairies. This is one that I know a lot of people are keeping an eye on. They would love for this Bitterbloom Bearer to end up being an amazing card, and then pair that with Enduring Curiosity, just drawing all the cards, doing everything you want to do in Dimir, and getting Dimir back on top of the format. Rakdos Goblins, again, another deck that a lot of people like to play. This is one where you're playing a lot of kind of subpar creatures in comparison to the mono red aggro decks, and you're doing it all for the creature type line Goblin. We'll see how that pans out, but right now I think this one might not get there. I think it's going to be close, but not quite there. Esper Oculus has fallen way behind a lot of the other decks. This does have explosive starts, and Abhorrent Oculus is just an amazing card, so it still has quite a bit of power there. And Boros Life Gain. This is taking the best parts of the mono white life gain and diluting it a little bit with some of these red spells. Just a little bit too much on the mana, going all the way up to 4 mana here. Not exactly where you want to be, although some of the removal... Oh, it doesn't play Shelter by Ghost. Not sure if that's an oversight there. It seems like Shelter by Ghost would be amazing in that deck, but not being played right now. Here is a Sultai Elementals deck. This is the deck that I think is going to help push the Reanimator theme. I don't know if this is going to be the main Reanimator theme. I think the 4-color Reanimator is just too good right now, but this one lets you go ahead and get out Kavero to copy Deceit, Wistfulness, Emptiness, use all of the abilities for each of them. And again, it's Deceit is the main one here that you want to use, because you do have to tap for blue and black to play Kavero, so you could get both triggers here for 4 mana, and you would get 4 mana for a 4/4 elemental, and you would go ahead and return up to one other target to their hand, and you would go ahead and look into their hand, take a card from them, and make them discard. So Sultai Elementals will not be staying in the D tier for long. That will be around. The one deck that will probably be staying in there that I really wish wasn't is the 5-color Shrine decks. This just doesn't have it right now. I would love this to be playable. I think I mentioned that at the end of the January video. It would be great if we could play it, but right now it just does not have the power there. So I would not go out there and look to build this deck unless you want to just have a little bit of fun and you have these cards in your collection already. I certainly wouldn't cash in any wild cards for it. So I think we'll go back to the top and talk about where I think the format is going to go. I like looking at this Orzhov Skeleton decks. I think I'm going to try and sleeve it up and get a video out on this deck. It looks like a better version of mono white aggro, maybe less budget friendly, so maybe not quite as many players on MTG Arena, especially on the best of one queue, playing it yet. But I think it just fixes everything in the mono white deck, and it looks really strong. I would think that the decks like this would be around a lot. United Battlefront is a blast to play in the Jeskai Artifacts deck. I also played it in the Esper Artifacts deck. It's a lot of fun, and to be able to play 4 mana and end up getting 2 Corpses of the Lost, just that without anything else, you're putting 2 2/2s on the battlefield, but each one of them will be attacking as a 4/2, and they'll both have haste. So that's 8 damage coming at you when you were not expecting it, on top of anything else that you have going on the board. So I do think that Orzhov Skeletons will take the crown for mono white aggro, push that archetype even higher to the top. And then I think Sultai Reanimator will be just one step behind there. I think that'll be moving up to the A tier as soon as we figure out exactly which version of this Reanimator deck will be there. If you're on the fence with this deck, I would urge you to go ahead and buy in. This deck is going to be around for a long time. The Elementals version doesn't even rely on the graveyard as hard. So if there are a lot of Rest in Pieces or Soul Guide Lantern and these type of cards, you're not totally destroyed. Best of one, there's not a lot of them in the main decks. But again, if you're playing this for both best of one and best of three, something to consider. So mono white still on top. Reanimator kind of coming in after that, and then I would think that there's something here in these Bant airbending decks that will probably put one of them up at the top tier for a little while at least. I think they're very interesting, and I would love to be able to see how it plays. The triggers are a little hard to do on MTG Arena, so this is a deck that may play a little bit easier in paper when you're demonstrating loops than you have on Arena, but as we know, gamers are going to game, and we're going to figure out how to tap those buttons really quickly to make that loop happen as many times as we need it to. So I think it'll be there on MTG Arena as well. That's all I have for this month. Please check back. We're going to have another guide for best of 3, and then we'll be back in March to go ahead and recap what ended up happening at the end of February and look forward into March. If you like content like this, give us a thumbs up, put a comment below, let us know what you think the format is going to do over the next couple of weeks, and subscribe to the channel if you're interested. We post 3 videos a week, so there's a lot of content going out there. Subscribing and clicking the notifications, this is the best way to make sure that you never miss a video. If you want to take your support even further, consider joining our channel membership. We have exclusive member-only videos. We have polls that really kind of set the direction of this channel that we always listen to the members for. And we have a community Discord where we'd love to be able to take discussions like this instead of being just one-sided, me to you, and have the whole community discuss, talk about what our favorite strategies are, where we're looking to go in the next couple of weeks, so we could all make better choices, learn from each other, and end up with better results at the end. Till next time, have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.